They thought we'd beg. That's the funniest part of it all. The Galactic Concordat, the so-called enlightened species of the galaxy, descended on Earth like gods offering salvation. After decades of hiding in the shadows, monitoring our broadcasts, analyzing our wars, our politics, our weaknesses, they finally revealed themselves. A council of 10 races, each more alien and smug than the last, towering above us both literally and figuratively. They claimed they'd come to offer us peace, protection, guidance, but they came only after the sky turned red. The year Earth cracked wasn't during a war or climate collapse. It was during peace. That's what broke us the most. One bright morning, entire cities vanished. London, New Delhi, São Paulo, reduced to shadows burnt into concrete. No warning, no declaration, just silence, then oblivion. And then came the message. This was a lesson. Accept our guidance or lose your world. It wasn't the Concordat who did it. That's what they claimed later. It was a rogue faction of one of their own. The Jethal Dominion, a militaristic insectoid race who'd acted outside their authority. We were told to forgive. The Council's voice, a creature called Eugène, stood before Earth's broken nations, what was left of them. He spoke with eyes like oil and a tone soaked in superiority. Humanity must transcend vengeance. Retaliation is a primitive instinct. Forgiveness is the path of advanced civilizations. He said that while children pulled bodies out of rubble. Forgive? That word tasted like rot in our mouths. We didn't cry, we didn't protest. What we did was far worse. We united. For the first time in history, humans stopped arguing among themselves. Our politicians, generals, engineers, even old enemies sat in the same room. We had no capital city anymore, so we met on scorched ground. The message was simple. They burned our cities. They erased our dead. They called it a lesson. So we gave them one. The next decade didn't belong to speeches or negotiations. It belonged to dark laboratories, deep space silence, and vengeance carved into metal. We built ships, not just to fly, but to kill. We reverse-engineered everything we could find from the wrecks they left behind. A new kind of Earth force was born, not under flags or ideologies, but rage. We didn't ask for a seat at the galactic table. We built our own. They watched, smug at first, then confused, then afraid. Because we didn't come to talk. We didn't come to seek reparations or apologies. We came for war. When the first human dreadnought arrived in orbit around the Hethel homeworld, no warnings were given, no declarations, just silence, then oblivion. Cities turned to ash, their military installations melted into slag. And in the wreckage, we left a single message, burned into their capital. This was a lesson. Forgiveness denied. The Concordat panicked. Suddenly the monsters they once studied behind screens were standing in their gardens. The other races pleaded, sent emissaries, offered treaties. We answered the way they taught us. One by one, the Council's members fell. Their arrogance wasn't ready for how deeply humans could hate. We didn't just fight with weapons. We studied their psychology, their culture, their weaknesses. We fought like predators, not soldiers. And in the shadows of ruined palaces and burning star stations, one phrase echoed among our enemies. Humans remember. They say the galaxy is vast, but fear travels faster than light. The Chethal massacre wasn't an isolated event. It was a warning shot. We knew it. They knew it. And the other members of the Concordat, those smug overseers of the lesser species, felt the heat creeping up their necks. These weren't humans pleading for survival anymore. These were humans reminding the stars that we weren't bred for submission. We weren't a problem to fix. We were a consequence. After Shethel Prime burned, the Council scrambled. Emergency meetings were called across multiple sectors. The Alarim, the diplomatic jellyfish who once lectured us about compassion through inaction, begged for peace. Their ambassador's voice shook through the transmission. "We understand your pain, Earth. We stand with your grief." Grief. Grief had died with London. What remained was something else, something sharper, something primal. Our response was as clinical as it was merciless. We traced the supply chains of the Chithal warships, the ones that fired on our cities. We found out the Alaram manufactured the hulls. They claimed ignorance, claimed they didn't know what their parts would be used for. So we educated them. Operation Hollow Rain began on the first eclipse of their water moon. 6 Earth dreadnoughts descended without warning. No light, no comms, just silence and precision. Their cities weren't bombed, they were drained. Entire islands lifted by gravity weaponry and hurled into their own sun. What was left of their capital was turned into a monument of ash. We left a message etched into their ocean floor. Sympathy is not innocence. One by one, the so-called peaceful species of the Concordat started disappearing. Some fled into deep space. Others begged for protection from the same races they once ruled over. Funny how quickly fear brings clarity. Back on Earth, there was no celebration, no parades, no flags, just purpose. Our government didn't even have a name anymore. It wasn't a democracy or a dictatorship. It was a council of survivors, engineers, war strategists, scientists, AI architects, all working around the clock. No one asked for power, no one asked for fame. We had one goal, extinction-level retaliation. But it wasn't about genocide. Not entirely. We didn't kill for the sake of blood. We dismantled legacies. We shattered symbols. We erased their pride. Where they once stood as gods over lesser worlds, we turned them into cautionary tales. Their monuments became graves. Their philosophies, riddled with hypocrisy, were rewritten in the fires of consequence. The Concordat was breaking, and its members knew it. One of them, a species known as the Selari, winged creatures revered for their ability to manipulate sound and emotion, attempted what they thought would be a clever gesture. They invited us to a peace summit. A trap, of course. The location was neutral space, or so they claimed, a structure called the Circle of Harmony, built to withstand supernova-grade destruction. It was rumored no violence had ever occurred within its walls. We accepted the invitation anyway. Admiral Trent led the delegation, a former street kid from a broken Earth slum, now the face of humanity's vengeance. His presence at the summit was pure venom wrapped in calm. The Solari began their ritual, harmonic frequencies, mood-adjusted lighting, and empathic vibrations, designed to dull aggression, to open hearts. Trent didn't blink. He sat silently, arms crossed, watching the Solari elder float down from the rafters, wings shimmering. "We do not condone what the Chethal did," the elder said, voice trembling like a whisper on glass. "But your response threatens the balance of galactic unity. We must guide you toward peace." Trent smiled. "We've been guided before," he said. "London, remember?" The Solari faltered. "That was not our hand." "No," Trent said, standing. "But you held the map." With a nod, he activated the command beacon hidden inside his jacket. 20 orbital stealth satellites, planted months before the summit, activated and targeted the foundation pillars of the Circle of Harmony. The building didn't collapse. It sank. Into a black hole artificially opened beneath it using reverse-engineered Solari tech. Humanity had turned their own pacifist science into a weapon. The Solari homeworld received no further contact. The message was delivered before transmission cut. Even peace can be punished. By now, the remaining Concordat races were in full retreat. The Grathori, a species of sentient crystalline beings who once judged humanity as unstable, issued a galactic alert. Earth is no longer contained by diplomacy. Engage at your own extinction. But some still tried to fight. The Jakari, reptilian warmongers, sent fleets toward the outer rim of Earth's colonies. Their mistake wasn't in attacking. It was in thinking we still had colonies to protect. The colonies were traps, each outpost rigged with black hole mines, self-replicating defense AIs, and bioweapons engineered to infect only Jakari biology. It wasn't a defense. It was an ambush in every sense. They lost 40,000 warships in under an hour, and we didn't lose a single human. That was the moment the fear took root. Not just among the Concordate, but across the entire galaxy. The common species, the ones who'd been exploited, enslaved, and silenced by the Council for centuries, began rising up. Not because they wanted freedom, but because they knew humans would come eventually. And if they didn't show resistance, they'd be seen as part of the problem. Entire planets began sending apologies to Earth, not alliances. Apologies. Messages came in by the thousands. We were silent, we were complicit, we were wrong. We archived every single one, never responded. Forgiveness isn't a human instinct, survival is. There was one final race left, the oldest, most mysterious of the Concordate, the Vathari. No one had seen them in person. They communicated only through envoys, AI projections, and interpreters. They claimed to exist on a different plane of thought, beyond war and peace. But when we reached the core system of the Concordate, when our dreadnoughts hovered in low orbit around their sacred planet, something changed. They came out, in physical form. 10 beings, each covered in a metallic exoshell, glowing with energy not even our best scientists could identify. They didn't plead. They didn't attack. They simply stood on the ruins of their temple and spoke in unison. We underestimated the human soul. Admiral Trent looked down from the flagship above. He opened the comms. "You didn't underestimate us," he said. "You never saw us at all." Then he gave the order. The entire planet was swallowed by artificial gravitational collapse, forming a new black star. No survivors, no monuments, no chance to rebuild, just memory. Back on Earth, silence reigned. Not because we were satisfied, but because we were done. The galaxy lay in ruin. Not scorched completely, but humbled, shattered in the way only betrayed trust can destroy. We didn't ask for worship. We didn't colonize. We left them all alone. We returned home. Earth had changed in our absence. Cities were rebuilt, but simpler. Less noise, less chaos, no politicians, just communities. Defense grids still orbited the skies. But the people? They lived quietly. Not peacefully, but knowingly. Because we all understood one thing. In a universe ruled by lies, manipulation, and arrogance, humanity did what no one expected. We chose vengeance instead of obedience, rage over acceptance. And in doing so, we forced the stars to remember our name. They won't forget again. The galaxy fell quiet, but Earth was not at peace. Victory never feels clean. It doesn't wrap itself in banners or hand out medals. It stains the hands of those who earned it and leaves a silence too heavy for any celebration. Trent knew this better than most. He walked alone through what used to be downtown Chicago, rebuilt now, cleaner, more efficient. The skyscrapers were lower, more practical. Less of a monument to capitalism and more of a testament to survival. Autonomous drones buzzed overhead. Trees grew where highways once choked the earth. Kids laughed somewhere nearby, kicking a ball against a steel wall painted with faded words, "Never again." His boots crunched on gravel as he passed the memorial square. Names. Thousands of them. Not alphabetically, not categorized. Just names etched in stone, stacked like bricks in a wall that seemed too endless to process. He placed his hand against one name. a soft gesture. No one watching. Dad. He hadn't cried when the war began. Not when London vanished. Not when half the planet screamed through fire and ash. But here, with the silence pressing down, and his own reflection looking hollow in the polished granite, it felt different. We won. But it didn't bring them back. The High Command wanted him to stay visible, to give interviews, lead councils, maybe even form Earth's first diplomatic body for post-war interaction. He refused. Diplomacy was a language he'd never trusted. It had failed Earth once before. Instead, he spent his days walking, listening, watching. The people were healing, but something inside them had shifted. Even the children had it, this quiet intensity in their eyes. They knew the stories. They knew what Earth had done. There were no cartoon heroes, no fairy tales, just facts. We were attacked. We retaliated. We ended empires. Now we wait, because we knew it wasn't over. There are always survivors. Always those who crawl out from beneath rubble with fire in their lungs and hatred in their veins. Somewhere, in the far dark corners of the galaxy, seeds of revenge had already been planted. And Earth had to be ready. That's why the Citadel was built. A hidden installation deep beneath the ice crust of Europa. Not a weapon. A vault. Inside it was stored everything. Tactical data from every battle, recovered alien technologies, psychological profiles of every Concordat leader, even cultural archives from the species we crushed. It was Earth's brain now. And at its center stood Project Obsidian. Trent visited it once. He hadn't meant to. He was en route to a lunar inspection when the ship's navigation rerouted him mid-flight. Security override from the Council. He was the only one allowed entry now. The Citadel didn't have doors. It had sensors that scanned your memories. The deeper your trauma, the deeper it let you in. He walked alone through corridors that pulsed like veins. Lights dimmed with his breath. Eye monitors blinked silently, watching, evaluating. Every step deeper felt like falling into his own mind. Then the vault opened. Obsidian was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a child, a clone, not human, not alien, something in between. They'd used recovered Jethal DNA, fused with human stem cells, enhanced with Solari neural harmonics. It had eyes, black as oil, wide with curiosity, and a voice that mimicked any tone it heard. It sat in the middle of a chamber, humming to itself. When Trent approached, it tilted its head. "You came," it said in perfect mimicry of his father's voice. Trent didn't flinch. "Don't do that," Obsidian smiled. "Why are you afraid of the past?" "Because I buried it. Number you turned it into me." That was the truth no one wanted to say out loud. Obsidian was Earth's last failsafe. Not for defense, but for understanding. It had access to every mind uploaded from enemy corpses, every intercepted memory, every psychological record. It knew the enemy better than they knew themselves. And it was evolving. Faster than anything Earth had seen. Trent watched it for a moment, then asked the question that had burned in him for months. "Is it over?" Obsidian's smile faded. "No." The lights dimmed further. "There's something coming," it whispered. "Something they were all afraid of, even before they came to Earth. The Concordat wasn't a peace project. It was a shield." "A shield from what?" Obsidian looked up, eyes distant. "They called it the Hollow Path. A species, a force, or maybe an idea, I don't know. But the Concordat formed not to guide the galaxy, but to prepare it." "Prepare for what?" "For a harvest." The word chilled the air. Obsidian stood, bones cracking softly as it stretched. It walked like a child, curious and loose. But its presence filled the chamber with something ancient. "They didn't attack Earth because we were dangerous," it said. "They attacked because they were scared we'd wake it up." Trent stepped back. You're saying Earth was a trigger? No, Obsidian said, smiling again. I'm saying you were the bait. Trent stood frozen, staring at the thing shaped like a child, yet older than anything he'd ever known. The bait? He repeated. Obsidian nodded slowly. You weren't chosen. You were placed. Cultivated Trent's mind swirled with images. Nuclear mushroom clouds, burning cities, collapsing concordant homeworlds. Every act of vengeance now twisted by that one suggestion. We weren't reacting. We were being used. He leaned forward, voice quiet. By who? Obsidian turned its head sideways. That's the wrong question. You should be asking, for what purpose? Silence. The AI systems in the chamber buzzed softly, like a swarm of bees hidden behind steel. Trent felt a pressure in his chest, like the room itself was watching, listening, weighing his thoughts. What the hell is the holopath? Obsidian closed its eyes. For a long moment, it didn't answer. Then, without opening them, it began to speak. Not in its voice, not in Trent's father's, but in a tone no human should have recognized. A chorus of thousands speaking through a single throat. We are the silence between stars. We do not build. We do not rule. We unmake. The voice wasn't Obsidian. Not anymore. Trent reached for the emergency override on his wrist, but the panel blinked red. Command blocked. Obsidian opened its eyes. They weren't black anymore. They were voids, like holes punched through reality. The Concordat knew, it said in its normal tone now. They didn't fear you. They feared what would come after you woke. Woke what? Trent hissed, stepping back. You! Obsidian pointed a pale finger. You are the catalyst. Your rage, your vengeance, it echoes. Trent clenched his jaw. You're speaking in riddles. Because that's all I have, Obsidian whispered. The holopath isn't a fleet. It isn't an empire. It's hunger, older than stars. It consumes civilizations the moment they become self-aware of their own cruelty. That made Trent pause. We've always been cruel. Not like this. You burned an entire galactic government to ash. You turned pain into a religion. The galaxy watched. And now, so does it. Trent shook his head, trying to focus. Why would anyone bait something like that? To survive it. Maybe. To direct it toward someone else. Or maybe just out of desperation. The Concordat was breaking long before they came to Earth. They needed a scapegoat, a distraction, something bright and loud enough to draw the Hollow's eye away from them. And they picked us. Obsidian didn't answer. It didn't have to. Trent stepped away, his hand trembling slightly. He didn't like what this meant. Earth hadn't just ended tyrants. It had announced itself with blood. And now something older, something unseen, was listening. Do we fight it? He asked, quieter now. Obsidian tilted its head. Do you fight a virus? A storm? A concept? Trent's mouth went dry. Can we hide? Number you've already screamed? For the first time in years, Admiral Trent felt real fear, not for Earth, but for everything. He left the Citadel without a word. Outside, Europa's frozen plains stretched for miles. His ship was waiting, but his mind was already 1,000 light years away. If this thing was coming, and if the Concordat had spent millennia just avoiding it, then what chance did humanity have? Back on Earth, things were changing again. The sky above the Pacific rippled one morning, like heat distortion. Satellites caught the anomaly, but readings came back scrambled. Radiation levels dropped. Gravity flux increased. No energy signature anyone could explain. People thought it was another attack. It wasn't. The anomaly hovered, perfectly still, for 37 hours. Then it vanished. No sound, no shockwave. Just gone. But every infant born in that window, their eyes were black, No one could explain it. Genetic scans showed nothing wrong. No abnormalities, no defects, but the eyes, they weren't blind. They were empty. Trent stood before the Global Assembly 2 days later. It had been 3 years since he last addressed them. His voice was quieter now, but the weight behind it was iron. "We've done what no species has ever done," he said. "We made the stars bleed." No one spoke, all eyes on him. "But something's watching, and I believe we've only just awakened it." Screens behind him displayed the anomaly, then photos of the newborns, then satellite shots of deep space, the edge of the galaxy where something moved, but couldn't be measured. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Trent said. "We did what we had to, but now we need to do something harder." He paused, then said it. "We need to prepare to be prey." The room erupted. Some denied, others panicked, but no one disagreed. And just like that, humanity shifted again. Not into conquerors, but into survivors. On borrowed time. The Citadel tripled its research funding. Obsidian was given full autonomy. Earth's defense systems were reprogrammed not just for planetary protection, but for deep space threat detection. Trent watched it all unfold with a hollow heart. He knew what they didn't. The galaxy was full of monsters. But the one they'd just awakened? It didn't need spaceships. It fed on fear. And humanity had just served it a banquet. The holopath didn't arrive with fire. It arrived with absence. One by one, stars blinked out. First it was Gliese 581, then HD 40307, then 12 more within 3 galactic cycles. No explosion, no nova, just gone. The light they had shed across the galaxy since before human evolution, extinguished like candles in a storm. Astronomers on Earth went mad trying to explain it. They called it gravitational collapse, exotic matter decay, quantum shadow events, terms that meant nothing, because the silence spoke louder. Then the dreams began. Not everyone had them. Only some, mostly soldiers, survivors, people who'd held weapons during the retaliation. They woke screaming, describing the same vision, a black corridor stretching endlessly into a skyless void, with something moving just beyond sight, watching, breathing, whispering. You were never alone. At first, no one believed it. But then the black-eyed children started speaking in tongues no one taught them. Some called it gibberish, others prophecy. Obsidian knew better. "It's not speaking to you," it told Trent, its body more mature now. Taller, its skin less pale. "It's speaking through you. Earth was the match. You are the fire." Trent had stopped sleeping altogether. Not out of fear. There was no room for fear in him anymore. But because every time he closed his eyes, he heard it. Not words, not language, but intention. Predators don't roar at prey. They wait. And this thing, whatever it was waiting for humanity to realize one truth. You are not the apex. Trent stood at the edge of Earth's new orbital fortress, a ring station built from concordate wreckage, circling the planet like a crown of bones. They called it the Aegis. It bristled with every weapon Earth had invented, and a few it barely understood. But Trent knew it wouldn't matter. You can't shoot a nightmare. "You've seen it, haven't you?" came a voice behind him. It was Commander Brandt, old war dog, ex-Special Ops, now head of Deep Vigilance. His face was etched with too many regrets and not enough victories. "I felt it," Trent said. "It doesn't have a shape. It's like a hunger made real." Brandt stepped beside him. "Obsidian says it's coming." Trent nodded. "Number Obsidian says it's already here. Just not in the way we understand." The stars outside the viewport twinkled like they always had. But some were missing now, and the empty spaces between them felt closer. We spent all our fury on the Concordat, Brant said. What do we have left? Trent answered without turning. Understanding. Brant scoffed. That's not a weapon. Trent finally looked at him. It is if it changes how we survive. The Earth of now wasn't the same Earth that had burned cities in vengeance. The rage was still there, but beneath it was something deeper. An ancient instinct no technology could replace. Adapt or die. The Hollow wasn't a military force. It didn't need ships or soldiers. It corrupted ecosystems, erased gravity, bent memory and time. It unmade, and it was testing Earth. All across the solar system, anomalies were increasing. Saturn's rings distorted, forming geometrical patterns that no natural force could create. Mars had begun shifting its axis. Probes sent to deep space stopped sending data, not because they were destroyed, but because they forgot how to transmit. That's when Project Monad was greenlit, a consciousness integration program. The goal wasn't to build a bigger gun, it was to merge. Human minds, linked by neural lattice, guided by Obsidian's hybrid intelligence. If the holopath wasn't something you could fight externally, then Earth would fight internally, becoming something else. Something harder to consume. Trent was the first volunteer. The procedure was non-invasive, at least that's what the scientists claimed. But when the neural bridge connected, when his thoughts touched 100 others, soldiers, engineers, children, even a priest, he understood what it really was. It was unity. Not agreement, not peace, but awareness. Everyone's grief, everyone's hate, everyone's hope, all swirling in one shared stream. And in that moment, something noticed. The corridor appeared again. The endless black hallway. Only now Trent wasn't alone. They all saw it, together, every connected mind. And at the far end, a shape. No form, just movement, shifting, watching. Then the voice came, not in speech, but in feeling. You grew teeth. You remember pain. Good. The minds recoiled. But Trent didn't. He leaned in. What are you? The end of arrogance. The price of violence. The answer to your question. Trent grit his teeth. Why Earth? Why now? Because you are me, in flesh. Then it was gone. Trent disconnected, falling to his knees, nose bleeding. Around him others screamed or fell unconscious. Only Obsidian remained standing. You touched it, it said, eyes wide. Trent stood shakily. It touched us. And that's when Earth changed again. Not in technology, not in politics, in nature. Plants began blooming in patterns, geometrical spirals previously unknown. Animals grew more intelligent. Birds flew in binary code. Volcanoes erupted without heat. Weather systems stopped obeying gravity. The Earth itself was responding. Obsidian called it sympathetic resonance. The planet had felt the Hollow's presence, and it was adapting. For the first time in known history, Earth wasn't just a world. It was a will, a living reaction to an existential threat. The forests, the oceans, the air, all shifting, listening, preparing. Obsidian explained it simply. The holopath does not consume matter. It consumes meaning. If Earth remembers who it is, if it binds its pain and memory into something coherent, it might survive. Trent understood then. The war wasn't over weapons. It was over identity. And Earth was the last voice shouting, I exist, into the void. The day the oceans changed color, the world held its breath. It started in the Mariana Trench. Divers reported an unnatural hum, low, continuous, like a distant heartbeat. Then, within 72 hours, the Pacific turned from blue to a deep obsidian black. Not pollution, not algae bloom. It was something deeper. The water itself was changing, thickening, almost sentient in the way it moved. Satellite scans confirmed it. Oceans across the globe had become denser, richer in unknown compounds. And it wasn't random. The patterns formed spirals, glyphs, symbols identical to those carved into the ruins of Concordat temples humanity had razed years ago. Obsidian stood atop the cliffs of what used to be Los Angeles, now called Meridian Zero, watching the coastline ripple as waves formed letters in no known language. "It's trying to speak," it whispered. Trent stood beside it, older now, paler. Every contact with the hollow path took something from him. Time, memory, warmth. But he didn't flinch anymore. He didn't ask why. He just watched. "Earth?" he asked. Obsidian didn't answer for a long time. Then finally, "No, United States." Through Earth, Trent let that settle. Earth was adapting, yes, but it wasn't passive. It was channeling something through the people who had shaped it with blood, loss, and rage. The hollow path fed on identity, on the meaning of civilizations. But humans had always thrived in trauma. Our history was forged in war, in pain, in betrayal, and now all of that was weaponizing. Across the world, monuments that once stood as symbols of pride were being dismantled. In their place rose obsidian towers, black spires infused with resonance cores, designed by the shared minds of Monad. These weren't structures. They were statements, messages sent through space, echoing one truth: we will not be unmade quietly. In the shadows of those towers, people changed. Children born with black eyes began speaking in riddles that later translated to mathematical proofs. Grown men wept for no reason, claiming to remember lives they never lived. Dreams merged, memories fused. Some called it madness, but Obsidian called it preparation. "The hollow path will not come as an invasion," it said. "It will come as a question, one only the dead can answer." Trent had spent decades fighting wars. But this? This wasn't a battle. It was a reckoning. That's when the sky cracked. No warning, no signal. Just a line. Thin, white, silent, cut across the stars like a wound. It didn't glow, it pulled. Every satellite went dark. The moon trembled. Gravity shifted slightly across continents. Birds fell from the sky. And from the tear, something emerged. Not a ship, not a being, a presence. It covered half the sky above Earth, a darkness deeper than space, stretching without end, yet somehow shaped. You couldn't see it unless you looked at what wasn't there. Cities below flickered. People fell to their knees. Dreams turned into visions. Reality bent ever so slightly. And then came the voice. Not from the sky. From within. Every living thing heard it. Plants, animals, AI, humans, simultaneously. "I have arrived." The hollow path had not just found Earth, it had entered it. Trent collapsed, clutching his head. He wasn't alone. Millions screamed in the same moment. Obsidian, too, fell. But its eyes glowed, brighter than ever before. "They're here to judge," it gasped. Trent rose, unsteady. "Then let them judge." The Aegis orbital ring powered up immediately. Defense networks activated across every hemisphere. Earth's military no longer used soldiers. It used gestalts, consciousness-fused strike minds able to process threat data faster than light. The Monad system lit up with over 10,000 synchronized minds, but no weapons fired. There was nothing to shoot. Because the hollow path wasn't physical. It was the question, and it asked, "Who are you?" The question hit Trent like a freight train. His mind filled with images, his childhood, the ruins of Chicago, his father's grave, the burning of Shethal Prime, the screams of dying aliens, the eyes of children who hadn't even been born yet. "Who are you?" He couldn't answer. Not with words. But Earth could. The resonance towers activated, the oceans vibrated, the black-eyed children sang, and the world remembered. Every war, every betrayal, every death, every act of defiance, every moment of tenderness hidden between acts of savagery, it all poured into the sky, not as excuses, but as truth. This is who we are. We hurt, we rage, we fall, but we remember, and in that remembrance, we endure. The hollow paused. For the first time since the stars began to vanish, the thing behind the curtain hesitated. Because Earth was not begging. It wasn't bargaining, it was defying. Obsidian rose to its feet, blood leaking from its ears. You showed them. Trent didn't speak. He couldn't. He simply looked to the sky and let the pain fill him, because pain was the only language the hollow path respected. For now, it lingered. And Earth stood, damaged, bruised, changed, but whole. It wasn't over. But for the first time, the hollow path knew something terrifying. Humanity would not go quietly. It didn't leave. The hollow path lingered above Earth like a question no one could answer. No weapons fired, no declarations followed, just presence. A pressure behind the eyes, a hum in the teeth, a crawling sensation under the skin that never went away. People began to whisper less, dream less. Not out of fear, but exhaustion. Even the bravest were tired of surviving. Trent walked through a town that hadn't existed 5 years ago. It had no name, just coordinates. There were no buildings, just domes of obsidian and glass, grown from Earth's altered soil. Children with ink-black eyes ran past him, laughing in a language no one had taught them. Their parents watched with tired smiles, drinking bitter water that now flowed from underground springs laced with trace energy no scientist could classify. This was life now. Post-war, post-revenge, post-truth. Commander Brandt stood by a withered tree, arms folded, scarred face unreadable. "They're not scared," he said, nodding at the children. "They should be." Trent watched the kids roll a stone across dirt carved with spiral glyphs. "They're not scared," he murmured, "because they don't remember a world before this." Brandt spat. "Maybe forgetting is a luxury." Trent didn't answer. He didn't need to. He was carrying more memory than anyone alive. Every act of retaliation, every cry, every decision that turned Earth from a world into a warning. And now the Hollow was here, not to destroy them, but to know them. That was the conclusion Obsidian came to, weeks after the presence appeared. "It isn't here to kill," it explained. "It's here to understand." Trent raised an eyebrow. "And if it doesn't like what it understands?" Obsidian had just looked at him, quiet. "Then it will erase the understanding." Obliteration, not just of body, but of concept, of memory, of meaning. Earth's entire existence could be undone, as if it had never happened. And there was no weapon against that. The planet responded in ways even Obsidian hadn't predicted. Across the world, strange harmonics began humming from mountains, deserts, the ocean floor. These weren't mechanical signals. They were geological responses. The Earth was speaking back. The idea terrified scientists, that the planet, long thought passive, dumb matter, had developed will, personality, voice, and maybe a memory of its own. Trent stood in a cavern beneath what used to be Norway. A resonance node had formed there, one of the largest. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat, even though he hadn't told anyone. The stone glowed slightly, like it recognized him. Obsidian watched, intrigued. "It likes you," Trent frowned. "It doesn't know me." Obsidian shook its head. "It remembers what you've done, and it knows it needs a face." "A face?" "A speaker," Obsidian said quietly. "A sacrifice." Trent didn't ask what it meant. He already knew. That night, the hollow path spoke again. It wasn't a voice. It was a choice. Across the world, dreams unified into one collective vision. Black stairs, spiraling downward, made of ash and bone. At the bottom, a single door. Behind it, silence. But someone had to open it. A gesture of trust, or surrender, or both. Obsidian confirmed it the next morning. "This is it," it said. "The Hollow wants to be known, and it wants one of us to choose to know it." Brant threw a chair across the command deck when he heard. "It's bait. Psychological warfare, not diplomacy." Trent didn't argue. He just nodded. "I'll go." Everyone objected. Council members, scientists, Brant, even Obsidian. But no one stopped him. Because they all knew. Trent wasn't a man anymore. He was the face Earth had shown to the stars. If anyone deserved to walk into the unknown, it was the one who had carved the galaxy open with grief and steel. Preparations took a single day. There was nothing to pack. No armor, no weapons, just a single shuttle. Handcrafted, lined with organic circuits from Obsidian's own design, and imprinted with Trent's memories through monad integration. At launch, no one spoke. No speeches, no flags. Trent boarded the vessel alone. The black sky loomed ahead, split down the center like a cracked eye. He entered the wound. Inside was not space. It was absence. The stars disappeared. Time bled sideways. Light had no source. Up, down, left, right. None of it meant anything. Yet the ship moved. Or maybe he moved. It was hard to tell. Then the stairs appeared. Not literal, but real somehow. They spiraled in on themselves endlessly, made of every broken thought Trent had ever had. He walked. Every step echoed with memory. The first time he held a weapon. The burning of Shethel Prime. The silence in his father's eyes after London died. The cries of children from every city he couldn't save. The hatred, the justice, the confusion. The stairs narrowed. And then, the door. Not large, not ornate, just there. Trent stood before it, breathing hard. Then he opened it. What lay beyond wasn't a room. It was a mind, not his, not Earth's, the hollow path itself. He saw it all. Civilizations so old they wept molten tears. Stars born, not from fusion, but from grief. Beings who lived in the folds of time, watching reality pulse like a dying vein. Entire races who had once screamed their identity into the void, only to be forgotten, unmade. He saw Earth, small and furious, loud, violent, beautiful. The Hollow watched him. "You remember pain. Why?" Trent didn't speak with words. He showed it. A boy burying his sister after a drone strike. A woman sacrificing herself for a child she didn't know. A soldier holding his enemy's hand as they both bled out. A world that refused to forget its wounds. The Hollow tasted those memories. And it recoiled. Then leaned in. "You are not pure." Trent showed his face, aged, hardened, hollowed. "No," he said. "We're human." The Hollow was silent. Then, impossibly, it bowed. "Then you may remain." In the skies over Earth, the wound began to seal. The pressure lifted. The stars returned. Obsidian, watching from the control room, wept without understanding why. And far away, in the absence beyond stars, Trent stood alone. Not broken, but known. He stood in nothingness. No sky, no ground, no sound. Just memory and pressure. Just the presence. Trent didn't know how long he had been inside the mind of the hollow path. Time didn't work here. Minutes felt like lifetimes. Or maybe they were lifetimes. The entity didn't speak again, not with words. It watched. And Trent did the same. He saw the ghost echoes of other civilizations, their final messages, their last screams, their proud declarations that vanished into this void like mist. All of them had been proud. All had claimed righteousness. All had begged. None remained. But Earth had not begged. Earth had remembered. It had answered the question not with peace or submission, but with identity. Flawed, brutal, loud, and honest. The holopath understood now. It wasn't that humans were stronger. It was that they felt more deeply. Pain wasn't just trauma to us. It was foundation. We build from it. We carry it. We use it. No species had ever screamed into the void like we did, and meant it. That made us different. That made us dangerous. And so the hollow path had chosen not to erase us, but to mark us. A single word etched into the silence around Trent. Witness. That's what he had become. Not a conqueror, not a general, not even a survivor. A witness to something older than time, and now an anchor for Earth's place in the galaxy. When Trent opened his eyes, he was standing on Earth again. Or something like it. The sky was the same. The air smelled like salt and iron. The wind whispered in languages he didn't understand, but somehow remembered. He stood on a cliff overlooking a sea of black water. Below, people moved, not many, just a few hundred. All of them looked up when he appeared. None of them spoke, but every single one of them had his eyes. Obsidian stood at the base of the hill. It hadn't aged, but it had changed. Its skin had grown darker, pulsing with faint blue light. Its hair was longer, its face more human than ever, but the eyes were still bottomless. "You returned," it said quietly. Trent nodded. "I think it let me." Obsidian nodded in return. "You were changed." Trent looked at the people below. "They know." "Yes." "Why aren't they afraid?" "Because they understand." Trent sat on a stone. The earth was warm beneath him, humming with subtle vibration. "How long?" Obsidian tilted its head. 7 years. Trent blinked. Felt like minutes. Obsidian didn't respond. The world had moved on. Not in the way it had after the Concordat. That had been rebuilding. But this was transformation. The cities were mostly gone. Not abandoned. Evolved. People lived closer now. Not in tribes or villages, in networks, not digital, but conscious. Earth's monad system had grown. No longer just a military technology. It was culture now. Memory sharing, emotion threading, collective intuition. Every child born connected to it from birth. Pain was no longer private, nor was joy or rage, and because of that, violence had changed. It still existed, but not like before. There was no need to dominate, no need to impose will, because when one human hurt another, they felt it too. Trent walked through the settlement. No one bowed. No one saluted. But everyone watched. Respect didn't look like reverence anymore. It looked like recognition. "You saw it," a child said, no older than 10, walking beside him. "The thing that watches." Trent nodded slowly. "I did." "Is it gone?" "No," Trent said softly. "But it sees us now. And it understands." The child smiled, a deep knowing smile too old for his face. "Then it's not our enemy anymore." "No," Trent said, his voice rough. "But it's not our friend either." That night, he sat beneath a sky of unbroken stars. No scars, no distortions, just clarity. Obsidian joined him, sitting cross-legged. "Do you regret it?" it asked. Trent thought for a long time. "Not the war," he said. "Not the fire, not even the revenge." He looked up. "I regret that it had to mean so much before anyone listened." Obsidian nodded. "The galaxy has changed." "Yes," Trent agreed, "but not because we were right. Because we refused to be erased." That silence hung between them. Not heavy, just true. The next day, Trent walked to the ocean. Black waves lapped at silver sand. The water still pulsed in patterns, glyphs that sang when the wind blew just right. He stepped into the surf, not to vanish, not to die, but to connect. Because Earth was still listening. The hollow path still watched. And now, humanity had found a way to speak back, not with guns, not with screams, but with memory, carved into the skin of the world, etched in the voice of every survivor, and kept alive by a single truth. We are not what you wanted us to be. We are worse, we remember. There was no monument to Admiral Trent, no statue, no shrine, not even a tomb. By the time he passed, silently, alone, seated beneath the glyph-lit trees near the black ocean, humanity had already moved beyond the need for heroes. They didn't bury him. They remembered him. And in this new earth, memory was eternal. The concept of death had changed after the hollow path. When the sky cracked and understanding replaced survival, the idea of finality disappeared. Human minds, now partially entwined through the expanded monad lattice, were archived upon death, not in cold servers, but in resonant stone. Graves became listening chambers. You didn't weep for the dead, you spoke to them. And sometimes they answered. So when Trent died, they carried his body not to a field, not to a monument, but to the first rift, the spot where the sky had split and the hollow path had spoken. They placed his body in the stone basin, covered it in black leaves, and left it for the earth to consume. It did. Not rot. Absorb. Within a week, the stone hummed with a new note, a low, steady frequency that, when felt against the skin, carried emotion, resolve, grief, pride. That was how people spoke to him now, not in words, but by pressing their palm against the stone, letting it read them, letting it remind them. The children called it the first witness. Centuries passed. Humanity didn't conquer the stars. It didn't need to. It became something else. Worlds were not colonized, but connected. Other civilizations, those that survived the hollow path's era of reckoning, came to Earth not in fear or shame, but curiosity. They brought languages, histories, species with minds that dreamed in color and breathed philosophy. But none of them forgot who had screamed first, who had refused to be erased. Earth became sacred, not perfect, not holy, foundational. The black towers still stood, grown now into living organisms. They hummed and shimmered, powered not by fuel or solar energy, but memory. Each tower resonated with a specific thread of human truth. Love, sacrifice, rage, loss, each connected to a city, now more consciousness than concrete. Earth was no longer divided by borders. It was divided by emotion. You didn't travel to New York or Istanbul. You traveled to sorrow, or defiance, or hope. And each place remembered not what had happened there, but how it had felt. That was Earth's greatest evolution. We stopped recording facts. We recorded feelings. The hollow path never returned in form. But it never needed to. Its presence lingered in every thought, every decision, every whisper in the wind when the stars were quiet. And when other species asked, "What saved you?" humans answered simply, "We told the truth. We didn't plead innocence. We didn't beg mercy. We showed ourselves ugly, vengeful, raw, and the universe blinked first." Obsidian remained. It outlived all of them, not by design but by choice. It became the keeper of memory, the last hybrid, not human, not hollow, something in between. Children came to it with questions no book could answer. Why did we burn the stars? Why didn't we ask for peace? Why did we choose pain? And Obsidian would answer, because silence was worse. Eventually, Obsidian built the last tower. It was unlike the others, smaller, darker, isolated at the edge of the world where no light touched. It called it the Archive of Regret. Inside, it stored every mistake, every decision that cost more than it should have, every voice that went unheard, every apology that came too late. It wasn't a punishment, it was a reminder, because humans didn't erase history anymore. They felt it. One last time, Obsidian walked to the first rift. The stone still hummed with Trent's memory. Fainter now, softer, but still there. It placed a hand against it. "I kept them," Obsidian whispered. "I showed them how to carry what you gave." The wind shifted, and from the stone came a frequency, 3 pulses, 1 long, 2 short. In ancient code, it meant, "I see you." Obsidian smiled. Not for itself. For him. The stars above did not burn brighter that night. They didn't need to, because the galaxy knew one thing, permanently engraved into the foundation of its memory. Humanity did not survive because it was strong. It survived because it refused to be forgotten, even by the void itself.